We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report on the phone. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the program writer and technically co-founder of The Intercept and author, amongst others at The Intercept, of The Assassination Complex. Jeremy Scahill, welcome to the program. Jeremy, did I get that right? I mean, is co-founder of The Intercept correct? Oh, I'm sorry.
And the organization was started with me, Glenn Greenwald, and Laura Poitras. We were the three people that started it. So I guess we're technically the co-founders.
There you go. I don't know that I've ever seen that in print anywhere, and I just, there we go. Well, thanks so much for showing up, and we'll talk to you later.
That was all you wanted to interview me about.
That was the big thing I needed to get to the bottom of.
It's amazing. Sam. That's why you get paid the big bucks for this kind of probing investigative journalism.
Exactly.
Next, you're going to figure out what kind of spice was in Donald Trump's taco bowl.
Believe me, I got a lot of guys working on that right now. Apparently, it's fantastic. All right, let's dig into this. The book is it's a compilation in addition to new information that you guys have been reporting on since 2014 at The Intercept. Let's just talk a little bit about the process of this, because in many respects, this book is the result of a fairly new phenomena. I mean, anonymous sources are not necessarily new, but the way in which you get this information and the implications going forward, I think, is pretty pretty important. Just tell us on what basis the reporting of this or a lot of the stuff in this book is from.
Well, we described this in the book, and in fact, we published an essay by the source of the drone papers, and this was someone who had worked on what the Obama administration calls the high-value targeting campaign. We call the assassination complex, and we can get into that about how Obama and every other president before him, wants to be able to say that they don't assassinate people while actually assassinating them. But the individual who gave us these documents was a very brave person, given that the Obama administration is waging an unprecedented war against whistleblowers and slapping people in record numbers with charges of espionage. If people look at The Intercept at our website, one of our security people, Michael Lee, who was the one that taught Glenn Greenwald how to use encryption so that he could communicate with Edward Snowden, wrote an essay, How to Leak to The Intercept. And one of the things that we began using, and now other news organizations are starting to do it, is a platform called Secure Drop, which basically allows people to anonymously transfer files that it can't be traced by any known surveillance device right now. Now, I'm not saying that's how we got these documents, but we do get a lot of documents through Secure Drop. But also there's a good old-fashioned just being there as a journalist and cultivating sources and not burning sources, and that's a way that more people come to you, is when they realize that your word means something when you say you're going to protect them as a source.
So tell us the primary documents of this. What were they, and give us just the broad strokes of what they outline. I mean, we've obviously on this program we've talked about it. We talked to to Ryan Devereaux at the beginning of the series of stories, I think in 2014, but just give us a broad overview of what they show, and then we'll get into sort of the history of our assassinations in some ways.
Well, the Obama administration, as you and I are speaking right now, the Obama administration supposedly is preparing to release their official statistics on how many people have been killed in drone strikes outside of the declared war zones of Iraq and Afghanistan, including the number of civilians that have been killed. And of course, it's going to be a minuscule number that they're going to put out. And so what we try to do with this reporting project was to put in a digestible format secret and top secret classified documents that are the military's own assessment of the impact of the drone program on their wars, both the sort of positives and negatives, and so the slides that we published in this book, and many of them we had published as part of our reporting project, the drone papers. What they show is that the Obama administration has embraced a mathematical formula for determining civilian deaths that will almost always result in the number 0 when the question is how many civilians were killed. One of the documents that we have shows that 90% of the people killed in mostly drone strikes, but there were a couple of non-drone strikes by the Joint Special Operations Command. 9 out of the 10 people were not the intended target of the strike. And that doesn't mean that 9 out of 10 people were innocent civilians. It means they don't know who they're killing. And what they do is they label everyone killed an enemy killed in action, EKIA. And the only way you do not have that designation is if someone posthumously proves that you weren't a, quote, suspected militant or terrorist. And so, I think that these documents really will serve as a stark pushback on Obama's portrayal of drone war as somehow cleaner, and the claims that the number of civilians killed is minimal, because they don't know who they're killing in these strikes.
Is that Haymaker? Is that Operation Haymaker when you talk about the 9 out of 10? Is that a?
Yeah. So Operation Haymaker, which you had asked me for the broad overview. So
right, okay.
Operation Haymaker in Afghanistan was a study of a year-long special operations high-value targeting campaign, and what it revealed was that far from just sort of bumping terrorists off left and right, the most elite commandos in the U.S. arsenal were pulled into sort of timber wars and tribal disputes in Afghanistan, and they did a study of one 5-month period of like who was being killed. And that's where they determined that 9 of the 10 people were not the intended target. And what's interesting about that is that was in Afghanistan, where the U.S. does have military bases, where the U.S. does have on-the-ground assets and an ability to gather intelligence. And if the numbers are that bad in Afghanistan, where they have tremendous ground assets, God only knows what it is in like Somalia or Yemen, where they don't have any bases.
Right. Let's address that. I mean, that notion of this is where there's the supposed absence of the tyranny of distance. Is that what they referred to it?
Right. I mean, the only it's interesting because I'm sure that what Paul Revere, and others were talking about when they were sort of opposing tyranny was the distance between a base and killing someone with a drone. That's really that's tyrannical. The fact that they have to, but it's because corporations help them. Do these documents. I mean, the IBM corporation.
All right, hold on. Let me stop you here for 1 second before we get to that, because tell us specifically what these documents are. They are a presentation to the Army about the efficacy of what of JSOC is doing.
Well, not exactly. These documents were produced by an intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance task force that was created under the Bush administration, with the explicit goal of sort of trying to convince Congress to give more resources to the hunter-killer squads. And it was run at the time of the study, it was run by a guy named Michael Vickers, who is a kind of legendary paramilitary figure in U.S. history. And what the documents are is can I swear on the show?
Yes.
One senior special operations officer told us that these are a bitch brief. That's what he called it, meaning that the military is saying, we need more resources. Why does the CIA not have to worry about how many civilians that they killed? We need more drones. We need the ability to have greater latitude to strike targets on less solid information, because of the pressures you're putting on us to kill all of these terrorists around the world. we need X, Y, and Z resources. And so what they're doing is they're basically laying out what they see as their challenges, in terms of prosecuting this assassination campaign. But really, the point of it is to try to get more resources, better toys, more drones, more sophisticated drones. And in the process of their sort of lobbying campaign, they reveal a tremendous amount of information about how the actual drone program works. For instance, the kill chain, which is how the United States ends up with the president signing the death warrant of these people in a secret process. The military was putting that together in this slide to sort of complain that there's too much bureaucracy. But we look at it and we say, wow, Hillary Clinton was directly involved with like approving every single person who was killed in or who was the target of a drone strike. That's pretty incredible. So there's a lot of interesting information that I don't think the military believed it was going to ever be in the public domain. But because a whistleblower came forward with it, it is now public, and it is a pretty powerful pushback against the way that the drone program has been portrayed.
And so the people understand and are able to contextualize this. This is like almost like the functional equivalent of a startup business going out and looking for new VC capital, right? And here's our PowerPoint. Here's our presentation. This is why you should give us more resources, and this is going to be our return on investment. And we're going to be able to do this more effectively. So this is sort of like, they're not presenting, this is like, sort of the rosy side of this too, right? I mean, and they're also obviously looking for a lot less scrutiny than one would imagine, because this stuff about, just go through the whole thing about the difference between a touchdown, because you can have basically, this is sort of like heads we win, tails you lose type of situation, because we can only get like, it's either a touchdown or a success, basically.
Right. So the terms that they use to describe their successes in their operations, each drone strike, unless it's what's called a signature strike, and you and I have talked about this before, where there's groups of people killed whose identities are not necessarily known, but the U.S. But the military or CIA have been authorized to kill them because their behavior, their metadata, their networks. Intelligence analysts have determined means that they probably are terrorists. So that's one kind of drone strike, and that's not the most frequent one. The most common drone strike is called a personality strike, where it's one target per strike. And so when the military or the CIA set out to kill someone, it is one person per mission. Now that doesn't mean they only kill that one person; they kill a lot of people, but it's just one objective. So when they then go out to do that, if they kill the person and they confirm that it was them, they call that a jackpot. But if they blow up the phone of the person, which they've used to track them, then they call it a touchdown until they confirm that it's a jackpot. And I mean, but this is the kind of, it's like sports analogies. There's three sort of themes that you see when you start studying military terminology. One is they love to use Native American words to describe, their most vicious weapons, the Tomahawk cruise missile, the Apache helicopter. They also are very much obsessed with like merchants of death. So it's the Predator drone, the Reaper drone, but then also sports analogies and sports terminology, like the touchdown, or in the case of jackpot, maybe gambling also.
Well, I guess my other point was that it's either a jackpot, assuming that they just don't take out the phone, and in that situation it means like somebody could have gotten a hold of somebody else's phone, or they've put their SIM card in a different in somebody else's phone. But if they don't get a jackpot, they still don't lose, do they? Because they get an EKIA. Explain that dynamic. Right. So they can never, this is what you're talking about. It's not just mathematics in this situation. It's designations, right? Like there is no losing in terms.
Exactly. They basically assume, and this is the official policy, they assume that everyone they've killed is an actual enemy. And that enemy was killed in action. The most famous EKIA was Osama bin Laden, where they radioed back in and they said, Geronimo EKIA. And so I think, a lot of people think, oh, well, if the military's saying it's an enemy, you're imagining like a firefight or something, and we've killed 10 of the enemy. No, they really don't know who the people are, but they immediately label them enemies killed in action. And that's how the majority of people killed in drone strikes, that remains their designation forever, that they were just tallied in the enemies category, not in the we don't know or, wow, these were civilians category.
How would, I mean, the only way that you cannot be an enemy killed in action, regardless of who you are,
a child or a woman.
Yeah, and so how would how would that be established after the fact? I mean, obviously, I mean, honestly, like,
no, I know.
It seems ridiculous, and this is all sort of like catch-22 stuff in some ways, but.
But that's what I'm saying. They've created. I mean, it's sort of it's quite brilliant because they've created a way of tallying civilian deaths that will almost always result in the number 0 when asked how many civilians were killed. And because if the way that you would prior to a strike, the way you would see if it was a woman or child was if they have HD video cameras on the drones, and you could actually see it, and there's video of it that's been recorded, and they'd show, oh my God, we killed women and children. But in the aftermath, the only way that you would ever have to be sort of acknowledge that you killed civilians is if survivors came forward, or journalists traveled to the scene and reported on it, or human rights organizations, or whistleblowers who say, look what we did, like Chelsea Manning when she leaked the collateral murder video showing helicopter gunships gunning down civilians and journalists in Iraq. That was proof that these people were indeed civilians.
Does the U.S. government do anything in a proactive manner to determine